back, everybody. We're going to start a new project. It's something that I was alluding to several months ago, actually, just after I put the paddle shifters on the G. I was talking about my future plans and what I wanted to get done starting this year. And what I was talking about is building a motor. And it's what I've wanted to do for quite some time, since I was a young man, is build an engine myself with the help of machine shops, obviously, but assemble it myself with the parts, components, the way I want to do it, just to prove that I can do it, and then successfully having done it, put it in a car that I can just drive around, have some fun in. Well, the first step of that has been accomplished. There was a weird kind of symmetry that happened over the weekend. I was working at a place that it turns out was this old consignment speed shop here in town called Dale Welch. Many years ago, back in the 80s, when I was a teenager getting into cars, I used to go up there to find used parts, see what they had around, get my car up and running. My brother actually bought his 1969 Charger RT from that shop. Well, years went by, you grow up, you do things, you become an adult, have kids, whatever. Well, this bug returned to me about wanting to do this about a year ago, but it just so happened that I was working and I had to go to this location. And it's still a speed shop to this day, new ownership, but it just brought this all back. And while I was there, I asked the guy, hey, do you happen to have a block for sale? And he did. And I went up this afternoon and bought it from him. It's a Chevy 350. It's a virgin block. It's never been machined. So it's got standard deck, standard board. I can do whatever I want to with it. The block is in really good shape. We'll go over the specs of the block itself here in a second, but it's just really weird how this lined out, how this just kind of fell into my lap and gave me the impetus. This is happening for a reason. Go ahead and pull the trigger, get this thing started, and see it through to the end. So let's go take a look at the block.
There she is. It is a 1973 Chevy small block, 350. As I mentioned, standard bores. That's the 4-inch diameter bore. I mic'd them out a little bit. They're like 395, 396 across the board. I gave it a wash so far and gave it a WD-40 bath to keep the flash rust down on it. The stamping is for the engine right there. That's the casting number, the clock. This is the actual specific date and year, C2873. That translates to March 28th, 1973 is when this block was cast. I probably can't read it, but I've got the VIN numbers written down off of the casting here. It's in really good shape. The block itself, it has some scale. This could probably, with some aggressive honing, be honed out and still keep it on the factory bore, but I think once I got this inspected and saw that some of this has genuine pit, the idea was to get it bored 30 over, make it a 355 at a minimum, and possibly turn it into a 383 by having it clearanced and taken 30 over. That way I could put the 400 stroke kit in it and make it a 383. Let me get this rolled over, take a look at the bottom side of it. Okay, so here's the bottom end. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is it is a 2-bolt main, which, to be honest, is completely fine. There's a big, I guess, misconception that you cannot build a powered motor, a high-power Chevy motor, without it being a 4-bolt. The reality is that the 2 bolts will be fine up to, what I've read, what I understand, upwards of 500 horsepower. So it being a 4-bolt main is not going to keep it from just being a truck engine or anything like that. Now, what I am probably going to do is we're going to go from bolts on the mains, and we're going to get like an ARP main stud kit that gives it some extra support on a 2-bolt stance. And possibly, I'm going to talk to the machine shop, see how much it costs, what's involved, but have splayed main caps put on. That will take it from a 2 to a diagonal 4-bolt pattern for the caps, and that obviously then you can do whatever you want upwards with some aggressive boosting on it. But looking at the bottom of it, you see it's really in good shape for being Motor, I have no idea how long this block has sat bare, but it was treated fairly well in storage. Obviously, you saw some of the rust in the cylinders. Time is going to do that. You can't protect these things forever unless you clean them off like every 6 months and re-oil them. Just kind of like almost like a normal use in that respect on a car you keep in your garage. Even if you don't start that thing up, it's going to start rusting up on you. But they did a really good job keeping this block in great shape. Now, I've done some archaeology on it. I showed you the casting numbers and all that, the VIN number. I got all that decoded, and the motor itself has a pretty neat little history to it. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So, what we have is a 350 Chevy block. The casting number 3970014. That translated to a 2-bolt 350, and interestingly enough, it came back as specifically a California installed motor in a Camaro. Now, this being the 2-bolt, not the 4-bolt, it's the low power 200 horsepower version of that engine, but specifically shipped to California and installed in a Camaro. There's the VIN number and the engine mark number. It was built at the Towanda powertrain plant outside of Buffalo, New York on March 6th, 1973. I didn't write that down. Cast as a 350 with an automatic transmission and a 4-barrel carburetor. Specifically, it was assigned to a vehicle at March 28th, 1973, as you saw on that C2873 stamp on the engine. So that's a pretty neat little history. This car, this engine, it's not a performance motor, but it went into a sporty car. It was from a Camaro. And it's neat that you can still get the history on this. We're talking going on 50 years later, and you know exactly to the date. In fact, you can actually tell to the hour that this block was cast because of the record keeping that they started to have to do, basically because of theft and insurance claims when they had to start tracking cars, and the old VIN numbers just weren't going to cut it because there was no way to tell the components of a car from another because it was never documented. They just threw the cars together. And I think it was in 66, 65, 66 is when I want to start saying they went to the long code, the long format VIN that pretty much documented everything. It's coming back and help me right now because I know exactly where this little beauty came from. Now, I'm going to do some things to it before I turn it over to the machine shop. It's going to be a practice motor for me as well. I'm going to go ahead and mic all the journals. I'm going to see if the factory bore, without bearings, but the factory standard bore is right. I'm going to go ahead and mic the cylinders. I'm going to test them for taper and run out, make sure they're not oval shaped too bad. Again, it's kind of irrelevant because it's going to get bored 30, at least 30, maybe even 60 over. So they'll be square and true after you do that. I'm going to measure the deck height, center line of the cam to the top of the head plate, and see it should be like, it's like a 902, 92 something inch deck height for a small block GM. But I'm going to use it to learn how to read all the gauges, the dial bore gauge, the mics, and the calipers that I'll be using when I get the block back from the machine shop and have to actually do the assembly on it. I want to be pretty competent in how to use all that equipment because that's absolutely necessary when you start assembling the motor. Also going to do some things to it to clearance it. The machine shop's going to be doing the majority of the clearancing on it. You can tell right here specifically at the edges of the oil pan rail. This area here needs to be cleaned out quite a bit so that the crank counterweights and the rod caps can clear. If you put that 400 crank in it with the longer connecting rods, that's where it's going to hit. And so we'll have, if I go the 383 route, they'll have to do all that at the machine shop. Probably looking at upwards of $600-700 worth of machine work when it's all said and done to turn this into a 383. The motor is in such good shape, though, to be honest with you. I could spend an afternoon honing it and planing with just files and everything, and I could turn this into a runner right now. The cylinder walls I think are in that good a shape that if you get that scale off of them, they're still going to be within tolerances for a standard bore piston and standard rings that you could actually make this a runner right now. It's just a really, really well-maintained, well-preserved block. just so happy to have fallen into my lap like the way it did. So, gotta go ahead, close this video out. When I start doing some of the work, like learning how to do the miking and dial bore gauge reading and all that, and when I do the hone job on it, I'm going to do it myself, even though I'm going to have it bored at the machine shop. Still going to do the honing myself because I'm going to play around with that and get some experience with it. Everything goes right with this one. It's not the last motor I'm going to build, so I'm going to have all those standard good shop practices and little tricks you need to be able to do down before I do another one. So look forward coming up here. I would say the videos, I can't tell you exactly when they'll come out, but there will be notifications if you subscribe, which I do hope you do, because this is going to be a really fun project, and more so than just bolting on stuff and having somebody with a computer play around with my G37. This is going to be real mechanic work, real machine work, and a true bottom-up build by an absolute novice that you can watch the process and laugh your ass off at me along the way as I make the mistakes I know I'm going to make. But I will see this through, and it's going to be on an engine run stand, hopefully sometime later this year. It will fire, and I will be able to say that I've put this motor together, and then I'll probably find a truck or a little GM mid-sized body to throw it in, have a little fun with it. Keep watching, like and subscribe. Thank you very much.